Welcome to a very special video. This is a beautiful disaster. We haven't done one of these for a while, so I'm looking forward to doing this one. And so I left it for this film, which was Big Trouble in Little China, John Carpenter's wonderful film that absolutely tanked on release, that no one understood. Then it went to video and everybody got it straight away. It's one of those films that when I remember the video era, this is one of the big films, because it just came out in video and everybody saw it and everybody was talking like how great this film was. And how did we not see it in the cinema? And because we didn't, because it was barely released, and I think it was released in America and then everyone else. And basically, it was a film that the rest of the world would have got easily, but America didn't get at the time. So it would probably been better off being released. I'm not sure how it was released in America, in Britain or the world, because it didn't feel like it was getting released. It just felt like it was a direct-to-video thing. It might have got a token release, but I can't remember it. But the damage was done because it's the American release. But it is a beautiful film. It's gorgeous. It's really funny, really daft. It knows exactly what it is. It's in love with these old, kung fu movies, that ran through Asian cinema. The kind of absurd kung fu action things that where Diamond does, and just total pulp, but also sitting in America and doing it as a send-up, where big American heroes are moron, who's just a complete idiot. And that's the joke, and that's the thing that some people did not get, especially the studio that made it. I think, and they put a poster out that was so bad, so weird. It was painted. It was almost like they were trying to hide who was in it, because Kurt Russell was the star, and the poster doesn't look like Kurt Russell that much. They were trying to make it look like an Indiana Jones film, and that had come and gone by that point, and we'd seen all the rip-offs of Indiana Jones, so that was actually a detriment to it, because it wasn't an Indiana Jones film, and we've already seen disastrous rip-offs like Highway to China and things at that point, so no one was fooled. So instead of saying what it actually was, which was a kung fu movie with a stupid American hero, they tried to hide what it was, and they were embarrassed by it, and it just was like a film that had no chance of being sold to anybody, because the people who were making it were afraid of it and were embarrassed by it. So it was only John Carpenter fans who were that interested in it, until it went to video and people saw it. I mean, it's such a weird, wonderful film. Even my sister loves it, and she's doesn't like anything I like, apart from this is one of the few films. Because it's just, I remember everyone loving this film. It was just one of those films that it was exactly what everyone wanted at the time, but it just got unlucky when it was released and how it was released. It just had no luck. But I think it's one of those films that contributed a lot to the longevity of Kurt Russell, because it's a film that he made that's beloved. And after this one, you seem to get a lot more comedies. Everybody who saw it loved it, and it was oh, he's funny, we should put him in comedies. And I think it's one of those key films that it may not have made money, but I think it was very instrumental in Kurt Russell's career. And it was one of those films that did John Carpenter a lot of good as well, because people loved this one. This was one of his most beloved films. I mean, it's kind of like what The Big Lebowski is to the Coen brothers. This film, the Shaggy Dog story that didn't quite deliver at the time, but everyone now really enjoys it. Okay, we should start by pointing out that Kurt Russell plays one of the dumbest characters ever in a film. He's an utter moron. He's a blowhard who thinks he knows a lot and doesn't know anything. He loses all his fights. His sidekick, played by Dennis Dunn, who also was in Prince of Darkness, is viewed as a sidekick in the film traditionally, but he's actually the hero of the film. He's the one who does all the fights, who knows everything that's going on, who wins the battle. But Kurt Russell thinks he's the sidekick, and it turns out Kurt Russell's the sidekick of this guy. That's the joke of the film, that is that everybody but Kurt Russell knows that basically there's a whole other film going on in Kurt Russell's head that that doesn't take into account reality. But that's the funny part of this relationship between these two guys, and one of them's competent, one of them's not, and the person who speaks the most is the incompetent one. And Kurt Russell knows it, and he's playing it up, and he's playing up the utter stupidity, and there's just just jokes, that non-stop jokes that just take the piss out of him all the time. And he's got these weird comments like it's all the reflexes, and you know, he thinks he knows everything, and it's a constant delight watching him get everything wrong. You'd think it would get boring after a while, but it never does, because he always finds new ways to be self-confident about things and to be proven wrong. And because they keep on up and down of the monsters and what's going on, and there's the Chinese myths of the ghosts that walk and become flesh and become this guy called Lo Pan, who's a gangster ghost who wants to become flesh again. Trying to explain this theory to this guy who doesn't have a clue is hilarious. It takes him forever to get it. And there's lots of fast-talking women in it. Kim Cattrall was the main one. She's got a friend who's a newspaper reporter. Everyone talks to as if they're in a Howard Hawks movie, and it's really fast, and it's really quick, and it's really enjoyable. The whole film's really enjoyable that way, but it's like Howard Hawks mixed with a kung fu movie. And a kung fu is really good. I mean, there's people are swirling all over the place, they've got their sticks, they're beating the hell out of each other. And I say kung fu, not martial arts. This is a kung fu movie. This is made by people who watched what we call kung fu movies in the 70s. That it's not sophisticated in the way that the genre would get in the fighting techniques. This is an old-fashioned movie. So that's why I call it a kung fu movie, because it's an old-fashioned type of film in that kind of era. But it is wonderful, because it loves the genre, but it's sending it up. And everybody who's Chinese in this film is really competent and really good and really know what they're doing. It's just the Americans who are clueless. Which I think was the thing, the big problem with the film was the Americans didn't like to see themselves as morons, and the rest of the world enjoyed the hell out of it. Because even Kim Cattrall's character, she knows a lot, but she's always getting in trouble, and none of her plans ever work. She's competent in comparison to Kurt Russell's character. She's not wonderfully competent herself. She's just, in comparison, she's competent. The news reporter is completely incompetent. She doesn't have a clue. She's trying to avoid doing fluff stories, so she gets into in the middle of this war suddenly. You know, I mean, only Devin Stun character has a real motivation, which is his fiancée is being kidnapped by the villain. He has to get her back. He's a motivated character. He's the one that drives it all forward. Like the Jack Burton character played by Kurt Russell is his pal. He's going to go and help him, but he never quite knows what's going on. Like, at all. Like, ever. I mean, look at this image. Doesn't that tell you a man with lots of confidence, but he's getting lipstick on his face? Because he doesn't have a clue. Like, he just doesn't have a clue. He interrupts the villain's speeches to show off, and then gets called an idiot. Basically, he's like, he never once has a clue what the hell's going on. And that's the delight of it. And John Carpenter's direction is lots of fun, very quick on his feet. I mean, Carpenter's a more traditional director. He shoots action in a very traditional way. I mean, he doesn't run with the camera or anything. He doesn't. He watches people going through landscapes, but he uses cutting quicker. Like he's very good at editing the imagery to actually create some suspense and some movement. But he's not a director who, I think he prefers dolly shots, watching actors going through something, or a lockdown shot, and the actors in the landscape. He's more of a suspense director. He's more of a traditional director, which makes it really perfect for this, because he'll just step back and let him watch the actors do the thing. He'll let the kung fu actors do the thing. They're flying through the air in ridiculous ways, but he still shoots it traditionally so that you get the joke. He's not trying to throw you in for, oh look how show off I am, how great I am with the visuals. He's confident. He's got good collaborators in this project that know what they're doing and who can deliver, And it's always a delight to watch the action scenes, because he just covers them like very, very cleverly, but he knows no one's here to watch his direction. This one, it has to be a bit more invisible than something like Halloween or The Thing. He has to let them do their work. Lets the kung fu people do their work. Lets the actors do the comedy. And he covers it in a really traditional way, which is really good, because he's a really terrific director, so he knows what he's doing. He knows where to put the camera and all that rest of stuff. So this is This was his like, last big budget movie for a while, because the experience of this one with a studio didn't understand the film kind of put him off. And he went back to the low budget things for a while. I think this is his last film that, with the studios, it was actually we can actually call a success, because after the next two films the studio before he kind of gave up really were Midnight's Invisible Man, which was compromised by Warner Brothers and Chevy Chase, then Escape from LA, which had its budget cuts, so it never really had a chance, and a lot of the things that could have been really funny about it were undone by lower special effects than it needed, and it needed a bit more of a scale to make it work, to make it kind of funny. And I think that was one of its problems. And it cut some sequences that made more sense of what was going on, and it was just one of those films that it needed just a studio who was more behind it. He made other films that were for independents, like New Line. He made a couple of films for Columbia that were lower budget. So he exploited the studios at a lower budget, really, so that he would less interference. But this was his last time working at a kind of bigger budget. Really, it was kind of his last successful big budget movie. Even though financially it wasn't successful, but it was artistically successful. That was kind of, but it was. It must have made a lot of money over the years by now. I mean, it must be in profit by now, because it's always on. Whenever there's a new format, it's always been released. It's been in Blu-ray, DVD, VHS. It's always on TV. It's always a good thing like having a package anywhere for old films that people like. So it must be in profit by now. I mean, and the only reason it was never in profit to start with was because it was so badly sold and didn't understand what the film was. That was in them more than anyone. Just if it sold it the way it was, they'd probably have a much better chance of, especially in Europe. Europe, they could have done a lot better, because Europe would have got, if they'd sold it, they would have got it. Because it's very popular here. It's become very popular in America as well. Its status now, really, in like modern cinema, as one of the great cult classics. Like, one of the films that deserved to be successful wasn't. Kind of that kind of Bring Up Baby thing, where Bring Up Baby was a massive bomb on release and it's beloved. Now, a lot of films that did well on release, no one cares about anymore. And that's the same thing here. It's like no one cared. A lot of films that probably released at the same time, no one cares about now. But everyone loves Big Trouble in Little China. It's still a film that everyone adores. It's just one of those films that's very well received and very just beloved film. It's just one of those films that should have. But this was a time when Police Academy films were like successful comedies. The National Vacation sequels and stuff. It was not a great time for comedy, especially a comedy that was taking the mickey out the American heroes that were basically ripping to piss out stuff like Rambo and Stallone. Because the Jack Burton character is that kind of character, but he's really stupid. In a way that you couldn't really send up those other actors at the time. But this film did. It send up the whole idea of the American military might and the American punch everyone to get away out of something. Instead, they put this guy in the middle of the supernatural, which didn't understand, against threats who can outfight him, which the audience couldn't understand. But it's just wonderful, though, just to watch an actor who gets it, though. Kurt Russell gets it. He knows he's a fool. And that's just wonderful. And I think it's just a wonderful thing for the film is a sense of humour about its own culture and how it kind of almost bows down to the Chinese culture in this case as being a little bit more mature, even though it's got its own problems, Which kind of works for the film. This is not like the Chinese culture of today or whatever political reasons you may have against. This is the old Chinese culture of it's travelled west and it's settled in here and it's got its traditions. It's kind of a nod to an ancient culture that actually has some wisdom. That's the kind of idea here, and we've got an idea who doesn't understand that. So it's a wonderful film. It's a film you can watch any time. It's just beautiful. It's just a thing of wonder. So go watch it. If you haven't watched it recently, go watch it. It is just great. It is just wonderful. It's one of the great cult films of the 80s. And it's amazing. Well, that's me for now. I can't say it's amazing anymore, really. I'll be back soon with another video, but that's Big Trouble in Little China, my beautiful disaster.